The committee will now hear from the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic, His Excellency Mr. Bashar Ja'afari, Permanent Representative. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to congratulate my colleague, the Permanent Representative of Romania, on his election to the chairmanship of this important committee in this session, and associate ourselves with the distinguished delegation of Indonesia in its statement on behalf of the non-aligned movement. As you well know, Mr. Chairman, challenges that face our world continue to exacerbate, foremost of which the development and modernization of nuclear arsenals and the threat of their use by nuclear states that are party to the NPT. In addition, the spread of terrorism and its use as a political weapon by the governments of member states of this organization, some of whom are permanent members of the Security Council, in addition to their sponsorship of terrorist organizations that are proscribed on the lists of the Security Council to have used chemical weapons. Mr. Chairman, the continued protection of Israel's possession of nuclear weapons and covering up for its non-accession to the NPT by certain nuclear states has become very clear when the United States and the UK made sure that the review conference of 2015 was a failure. The continued support by the US, the UK, France, Canada, and Germany, and other Western states has contributed in the development of Israeli military, nuclear, biological, and chemical programs, and has encouraged the Israeli entity to continue to challenge the international will and not to accede to the NPT or other weapons of mass destruction agreements. My delegation, near the end of 2003 and during our membership of the Security Council, made an initiative to free the Middle East region of all weapons of mass destruction, particularly nuclear weapons. However, the US delegation at the time threatened to use the veto if we proposed a draft resolution to the Council. And in this context, we would like to renew our call to the member states to work to free the Middle East region of all nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, and to bring pressure to bear on Israel to accede to the NPT as a non-nuclear party and to subject all its nuclear facilities and nuclear activities to the supervision of the IAEA. Mr. Chairman, we condemn in the strongest terms the crime of using chemical weapons based on our conviction and continued search to free the region of all weapons of mass destruction, particularly nuclear weapons. As you well know, we have joined the Chemical Weapons Prohibition Treaty to prove to the world our commitment and our stance against all chemical weapons. We have met our obligations based on our accession to the treaty, in spite of the harsh and extremely difficult situation through which we have experienced. This has been confirmed by the chairman of the Joint Verification Committee of the United Nations and by the Chemical Weapons Organization, Mrs. Sigrid Kaag, in her report to the Security Council in June 2014. With the destruction of the last two sites and the verification by the mission of the Chemical Weapons Treaty Organization, Syria has thus completed its commitments and destroyed all chemical weapons production sites. And we are now considering making a national declaration accordingly to the organization. Mr. Chairman, we have sent more than 160 letters to the Secretary General of the United Nations, the Security Council, the Joint Verification Mechanism, and the 1540 Committee, as well as the CTC. And the first letter that we sent was sent 4 months before the first chemical attack took place in Khan al-Asal in 2013. We have reasserted our fear that certain states that support terrorism may introduce chemical weapons to terrorist organizations and then claim that Syria had used them. Our letters contained accurate information on the possession and use by terrorist organizations of toxic chemical substances against civilians and the military alike, having transferred them from Libya with the assistance of certain intelligence agencies of countries that are hostile to my country. They have provided them to Daesh and Jabhat al-Nusra with the assistance of Turkish intelligence and moved those toxic chemicals across the Turkish borders with direct support by the Bandar bin Sultan organization. We also mentioned the name of the terrorist Haytham Qassab, who smuggled 2 liters of sarin across Turkey on a civilian flight to Syria. We have also informed the Joint Verification Mechanism and the Security Council of the collusion by Qatar and its support to terrorist organizations and their provision with the chlorine gas and other toxic chemicals in areas controlled by terrorist organizations. And we have taken still pictures and videos of this action. They have also helped them in the media and called them the White Helmets and given them an Oscar. At the time when we assert that the disarmament conference is the sole negotiating forum of all disarmament issues, and while we look forward to further agreement on the negotiating mandate stipulated by the first special session of the General Assembly devoted to disarmament in 1978, we would like to denounce the politicization practiced by Western countries, particularly the United States, the UK, and France, and other Western allies, which has contributed to obstructing the work of the conference and preventing it from agreeing on a program of work because of political issues that have nothing to do with disarmament. Mr. Chairman, terrorism will turn around and bite the hand that fed it, that is, the governments that have supported it. And we believe that member states should bear the responsibility and stop smuggling weapons and munitions of all types and other related substances, whether fatal or non-fatal. They should also stop smuggling armed terrorists across our borders to my country. Thank you.
I thank the permanent representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for his statement and for the kind words addressed to the chair and to the other officers of the committee.